Hi, we're Richard and Jackie from Early Retirement Wanderlust.
And we're home. We're back in the UK. We have just got back from our 6-week campervan road trip around Europe, and the last time we spoke to you, we were in Austria.
Since then, we've travelled through one of the smallest countries in Europe, Liechtenstein, which was very interesting, and then we headed up to the Alsace wine region.
So in this video, we want to give you our top 5 reasons why everyone should visit the Alsace region at least once in their life.
To our last few days of our European road trip, and we have got about 3 days left to get back home. First stop is in Liechtenstein, and we have found a great little park up. It is at the top of a huge mountain pass which we weren't particularly expecting to have to go up. We've got cows for company and we've got very little food in the van, so we're having a bit of a using up everything that's left in the van couple of days. So tonight's dinner we have got a tomato pasta with all the veg that we've got left over. It's all looking just a little bit wonky and manky because it's been so hot in Austria, but I'm sure it'll be fine. And we've got some nice stuffed pasta, so we're just going to have a nice evening chilling out, cooking and thinking about all the travels that we've been doing.
To Liechtenstein, very wet Liechtenstein. It's hosed it down last night, and one of the worst jobs of packing up is getting this wet thing rolled up and popped back in the van. It's the most horrible job.
So something that was in our New Year's goals that we set way back in January was to visit a couple of new countries, and driving through the tiny little country of Liechtenstein was quite an experience for us. We were so excited to go, but actually the weather let us down. We found the most amazing car park. It was about 14 kilometres up some little mountain pass. We had to go past the castle where the King of Liechtenstein, or the very important person of Liechtenstein, lives, and we were right up at the top of the mountain with the donkeys and the cows, so it was quite atmospheric, but it did rain for the whole 24 hours we were there.
Yeah, it was quite a drive up. It was probably one of the most challenging drives I've done, and I was questioning whether Liechtenstein was actually investing in roads or whatever. But when we got to the top, the cafe was possibly the most expensive cafe in Europe.
Yes, it was 13 Swiss francs for two coffees, two black coffees.
So, out of every cloud comes a silver lining, which meant that we had to move on because we needed to get ahead of the weather after 24 hours in the rain. So we headed over to the Alsace region to use Eguishein as our base. We used it for cycling, and it actually meant that we got 48 hours. So see how we got on.
So what are you cooking for tea tonight, Rich?
We are having spatzel, which is, we're not quite sure, it's a sort of dumpling-y sort of pasta type thing in a cheese, bacon, onion, gooiness, lovely sauce. And yeah, it's one of our favourites and it's home comforts.
As you can see from the montage, the Alsace region is absolutely beautiful, which gave us an idea. What are the top 5 reasons that you really should visit the Alsace region? Because we came up with loads.
The architecture of the region is quite unique. It's very Germanic in style, but it is absolutely stunning. And we said every town seems to have a real sort of civic pride about the beauty of the town or the village. And each of the individual villages or towns has its own sort of quirkiness that differentiates it from others. but all of them are absolutely beautiful.
We visited 3 of the different towns. Eguishein was my favourite. It's almost like a little old walled town, and it had like rings of very old timber-clad buildings, very brightly coloured, with beautiful paintings and murals paint all on the walls.
And then if you magnify that up, we then went into the city of Colmar, and we were quite surprised because it was a city, and as you know, cities aren't always our thing. It was a lot busier, the buildings were a lot bigger, but exactly within the same style, and yet you were wandering around a city centre, which was quite strange.
We had our bikes with us, and the vineyards of the Alsace region made it really accessible to get between the different towns. The vineyards in themselves are actually really, really pretty to cycle through, but they have the gravel trails that connect all these different towns and different places. You could cycle for miles and not have to go on any of the busy roads.
And more importantly, it's flat as a pancake as well, so it's actually quite easy to get between the towns. I love the Alsace region for its history, and it's fair to say it's got a pretty potted history between French and German. Throughout time, the sort of territory has swapped between the two countries, and in the Second World War, it was obviously a key region. It was occupied, and it did really take the brunt of the Second World War. We visited the small village of Turckheim, which was beautiful, and we couldn't quite work out how well maintained it was until we saw some of the historic photos of at the end of the Second World War, where the village had just been absolutely levelled. So yeah, quite a sobering thought when you see those images and then see how they've rebuilt it. But yeah, a really interesting historical place to visit.
Richard's all about the history and I'm all about the wildlife. And for me, one of the big things, particularly with Eguishein, is that it is a haven for storks. And as you walk through the village, there are loads of great big metal nests where the storks have their babies. And actually we were there at fledgling time of year, so you could hardly tell the difference between the adult storks and the babies, and they were all peering over the edge of the nest, and most of the roofs had these huge storks just sat majestically watching what was going on. It was really fascinating, and I think there is a bit of a trail set up that you can actually use an app to go and find where the different nests are, and it's a really big tourist attraction for Eguishein.
As Jackie intimated earlier, the vineyards within the area are so impressive, and the vineyards run for miles and miles and miles. Associated with that is obviously wine tasting.
We had a very memorable day. We cycled from Eguishein to Colmar, had a look at all of the architecture there, maybe sampled a wine, and then we went to Turckheim. And then when we got back to Eguishein, the thing to do when it was a little bit damp getting off the bike was to visit one of the vineyard tasting houses, and we had a very nice afternoon. They did little wine flights. It was €4 for 3 different versions of a grape, 3 different wines that they made. We had a few, and then I don't think it was very safe cycling back, but we did have a great time. So we stayed at the Three Castles campsite in Eguishein. It was a relief to be back in France, to be honest, because it was €19 a night and there were no extras on top of that, and it was nice to be back in affordable campsites. It's a popular campsite with Brits, so it was very busy. Lots of Brits that were returning and out on their European trips. With a basic price did come basic facilities. It wasn't the most plush campsite we've ever stayed at.
Which links beautifully to the latest edition of Rate My Shower. As you can see, the facilities are quite tired, but very functional, and most importantly of all, cheap. There's an interesting tile style, but no extra marks for that. The cubicles are on the rather narrow side. The showers are really clean, but the age of them really does take the shine off it. There's a real weakness in the hook and hanging game. The shelf space really isn't adequate. As you can see, we're back to push button showers, but there is a good length of spray on them and there is ample hot water. So overall, for the Three Castles campsite in Eguishein, quite a mixed bag of scores, strengths being loads of hot water, but let down by the space and the lack of shelving space, bringing an overall score of 34 out of 50. As we moved off from Eguishein, we pretty much knew that the big road trip was over, and then it was just about getting home, and we got a couple of days to get home and we literally just towed it. So you might have seen our video when we were taking the slow road on the way down. We didn't do that on the way back. We just wanted to get north, so we took the toll roads. We found a beautiful park up at
Berrioback, which was just north of Reims, I think.
Thanks for remembering that. And then it was just a blast through to Calais. And to be fair, it was a pretty uneventful journey back. We had to rush back for a lovely reason, because Luke and Charlotte, our son, and his girlfriend, now fiance, were having an engagement party. So that was a really good reason to get back.
So coming up in our next few videos, we will do a video specifically talking about the costings of a 6-week road trip through Europe, particularly going as far down as Croatia. And we have had a really good think about the top 10 things that we would have not done without on that road trip.
And then back on the travelling theme, we are so excited because in sharp contrast to hot sunny Europe, we will then be heading off to the Northern Isles, which is about as far north as you can get in the UK. And we cannot wait to explore the Shetland and the Orkneys. So that's all coming up. But until then, we'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.